Hello, my name is Kylie Newcomb. I'm a photovideographer, writer, sculptor, and performer working in the medium of the body, dance, performance, theater, spoken word, written word, expression, neurology, psychology, and the study of ancient rites, rituals, and lore. What does it mean to be an extroverted recluse? It means to feel alone around everyone. It means to live inside of your head. There were multiple instances in my early years of school where I was told that I was lost in my mind, and I agree with them. So in my Concepts 2 class, which I consider the beginning of my thesis work, I decided to sit out of a critique, but in reality I decided to be present for the critique instead of living inside of my head, preparing statements, preparing defenses. I sat and I listened and I wrote down everything that resonated with me, and some phrases were repeated on the page. My professor told me that the scribe ended up looking like my hair, which definitely led to more advancement in that feeling of connectedness, and that desire to come home was really reinstated in that space because I was at home in my body for the first time. This was work earlier than that project, but this is also work I consider the beginning of something. I had just started a journey with myself in terms of pharmaceutical assistance in my mental health, which was the first time I had surrendered to that process. I was resistant to it. This was the first piece of writing that I felt was my performance as well. It was an embodiment of the dance I was trying to do with my audience, and you can see in the last line. I went back to a place that made me feel like I can lay on the ground and make an impression. I tiptoed around in the cold air but did not seem to feel a thing. The trees and the sand and the dirt and the water made a cocoon just for me and squeezed me tight until I could not remember who I was anymore. I came home to you, my love. I came home. This spread of images was featured in Amendment Literary Journal's mental health issue, where I talked about my experience with surrender and the beginning of the healing process. This performance was done at Texas Beach, where in the middle of November I roamed around like an animal and just truly embodied the raw newborn state I was feeling. And that was really the beginning of this healing process, which I have learned is painful. And growing pains have riddled me for years now, but I'm proving myself resilient in them. And I am beginning to understand them and understand pain as the accompaniment of whatever the opposite of pain is to you. Because the definition of pain and the definition of safety are things that I allowed myself to misconstrue. So I ask you to look at your definitions of both pain and safety and see what both of those phrases mean to you in terms of your growth and just your process. But I ultimately discovered in my work that I am making a psychological space. I am creating a world to work out this psychosis, neurosis, what have you. This internal world of mine was something that I desperately needed to spend time with. So my work became my internal world, and I'm so grateful for that, because my work has become pieces of me, and my work has allowed me to confront and forgive. This is an excerpt from my book, Birth, Scorched Earth, which I wrote in response to my thesis work, but also in response to myself, and in an effort to translate myself into an object. But I'll read this excerpt because it really embodies my early work and my relationship with the camera. The camera is a weapon of defense. It allows you to photograph that which you are afraid of. Those ideas I really could not process without the distance the camera creates. Getting the ghost out of your system and onto a page that you can read back to me and tell me she is not real. I am never not taking a self-portrait. To shift from a cry of the soul to murmurs of spirit, the movement of the soul towards freedom. To feel free to speak on the reality of your experience. To rest in the space of infinite possibilities. Your mind is as vast as the sky. The fertility lies in that vast expanse of potential. It is our job to plot our escape, and sometimes I really think I cannot use both hands. You must have regenerative tools. You must seek out energetic reciprocity. To be such a student, your presence inspires others to release ideas. And that brings me to a point of surrender and a point of seeing and allowing myself to see what is, instead of some fabricated, projected, mirrored version of myself. Because my relationship with myself and our relationships with ourselves directly reflect our relationships with other people. And how we talk to ourselves reflects how we talk to other people. And I was afraid, so I talked as if I was afraid, so people became afraid, which leads me to a project about the accumulation of self and the shame that comes with the burden of carrying yourself on your back, or at least that old feeling, that old story of the burden of the self. This is a ink transfer piece on wood, comprised of self-portraits and wood stain and the carving of holes. And this was my first experience with a really satisfying combination of tactility and the photographic, and this really reinstated my love for sculpture. My root is in performance, and my root is in this body, this conduit. The body is a medium, and my body is my medium. This is a piece I did to be still. It's a time-lapsed piece where I moved in sync with the clouds. So the movement you see is very sped up, and I was moving my arms as slowly as I possibly could. If someone were to glance at me, you wouldn't tell I was moving. But that leads me back to that accumulation of self, and that feeling of remothering and reparenting yourself, and realizing that as you shift into yourself, you become your caregiver. You sit with all of it, the gentle, the wounded, the sharp, the cruel. You sit with them, and you accept them, and you forgive them. My work here, and my work there, and my work everywhere. It's an effort to understand and to be understood. It is my attempt to dance with you, but I'm holding a mirror while we move.